Dr. Ziggy Zdziarski is a researcher and lecturer in artificial intelligence, uniquely equipped with a PhD in AI, a master's in philosophy, and a pontifical master's in theology. This diverse academic background allows him to bring a distinctive perspective to the intersection of technology and faith. Recently, these qualifications earned him an invitation to the AI Forum held at the Vatican. Dr. Ziggy is currently the head of research and development at the Australian Institute of Advanced Technologies. Dr. Ziggy, welcome to Common Home TV.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we start at the beginning. Where did your AI journey begin, and at what point did philosophy and theology get into the mix?
Yeah. Let's see if I can cut a long story short here. We're going back quite a while. So I started in AI in 2004. That's at the end of my undergrad studies. There was a project for my honors degree that worked with robots and soccer playing stuff, and I thought, yeah, that sounds really fun. That sounds exciting. So that's when I started out, and I fell in love with AI. I'd already fallen in love with computer science, and AI was the next step on from that. And then I decided to do a PhD. I did that in Ireland. So being immersed in a different environment got me in touch with things that I would not have gotten in touch with in Australia. So philosophy and theology were two things that my friends pushed me towards. My Catholic friends, they realized that I was lacking in the ability to think abstractly and reason at a high level. So they looked after my soul in that respect, and looked after the formation of me in a more wholesome manner. So they pushed me towards philosophy first, and I fell in love with that. I really did. That's become a second hobby to me. And I realized afterwards, after finishing my philosophy, that to be a good philosopher, you also have to bring theology into philosophy. So philosophy is all about trying to understand reality around us, trying to use reason to understand reality around us, and in the most abstract way possible, like what is being and all that. And well, reality around us is a creation. And to understand creation, we have to understand the creator. To understand creation properly in its entirety, we have to understand the creator. So I was then, on my own volition, pushed towards theology to understand God. And in understanding God, I got to be a better philosopher.
To a lot of people, they're still grappling with what exactly is AI, and I guess we're using the religious talk of like put it in layman's terms, but maybe we even use the internet parlance of explain like on fives, ELI5. What is AI, and more specifically, what is the difference between narrow AI and general AI?
Yeah, well, that's the question that everybody should be asking, because no one's defined these terms. No one has sat down and said, this is artificial intelligence, this is narrow AI, and this is general AI. Some people have, and I'll talk about that hopefully during this interview. But and no one's even defined what intelligence is. So how can we talk about artificial intelligence when we haven't reached a consensus as to what intelligence is? So people are using these terms very loosely and very broadly throughout, in mass media and in companies and whatnot. And one person comes out and says, oh yeah, we're very close to AGI. And then another person picks up that notion and uses and says, oh, we're very close to AGI. This is great. And uses AGI in a different way that the initial person used it in the first place. So it is a real mess out there in terms of terminologies. And some people are starting to clean it up. Google's come out with some definitions. There's philosophers jumping in on board. JP2 did a little bit of work on consciousness, and the church is using his work. But basically, to answer your question, then, the general sort of idea of what artificial intelligence is machines imitating our own intelligence. Imitating the way that we reason, the way that we solve problems. and they're doing it in an artificial way because we've constructed these machines. They look like they're intelligent, so we're calling it artificial intelligence. So that's sort of the definition that's generally accepted for artificial intelligence. Then we have, you asked what narrow intelligence, artificial intelligence is, and what general artificial intelligence is. So narrow, once again, I mean, you go ask someone and they'll give you one definition, you go ask another person, they'll give you another definition. But generally speaking, narrow artificial intelligence is a machine or an algorithm that can do just one single task. So playing chess, for example, we have chess computers, chess programs, and they play chess. If you ask them to drive your car to the shops, they're not going to be able to do it. It's a narrow application. Now, AGI, boy, this is a big topic because it involves a lot of philosophy and a lot of hype, and it's even messier than what I've just covered in the last few minutes. Some people will think that AGI is something that has sentience and conscience. Some people will say, oh, something that beats human intelligence in most things, and you won't get a general consensus, which is why Google's research team, they released an academic paper, I think it was November last year, and they tried to define artificial general intelligence. And the way that they tackled the problem was very, very good, and I appreciate their work, and I'm on board with the way that they defined AGI. Basically, to cut a long academic paper short, they basically said, let's focus on competency. Let's not think about all these philosophical questions like consciousness and sentience and all that. Let's just focus on competency and define AGI as to what a software entity or software agent can do. So they define AGI as software that can do what human beings can do at a better, at a more adept level for a wide range of tasks. So according to their definition, we have achieved weak, narrow AI, but we have not achieved AGI because we haven't got these software agents to cook you dinner and drive your car and play chess with you, all better than what you can do. But the key with their definition is that they focused on competency, so they didn't go into the realm of philosophy. Hopefully that's cleared it up
hopefully
a
we
bit.
can do that. I mean, you're uniquely equipped with it. So I'll read you something that might veer us into that direction.
Yeah.
Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI, and I believe he worked with Google as well. He stated that AI, as you said, created by algorithms, it can
Mhm.
already see what we see, consume unimaginable amounts of information. It has memory, creativity, personality, and can, to some extent, reason and
Mhm.
formulate rudimentary plans, and act autonomously if allowed to act autonomously, which is, I guess, pretty important. And it operates at a level of sophistication far beyond what you would call a mere tool, because in the description, if everything is just it's all just a bit of code, that description sounds like a little bit more than math and code. How do you respond to something like that philosophically or theologically?
Yeah. Once again, muddling of terms, right? So when he says that an agent, a software agent, sees or has memory or understands, what does he mean by that? And this is the major problem with artificial intelligence, is that we're using terms in exactly the same way as we use for human beings. So, for example, a machine understands. Now, does a machine understand? When I say machine understand, the human understands. Does a machine understand in exactly the same way as human beings understand? Does a machine see in exactly the same way as a human being sees? Does a machine reason in exactly the same way as a human being reasons? Now, it may look like it does, but does it actually? And that's the big question in all of this. So let's look at understanding, and let's look at reasoning. When I lecture artificial intelligence, I give my students a synopsis of the difference between machines and human beings. And I like this because it's a succinct kind of summary of this problem. Machines operate on the level of knowledge. We operate on the level of knowledge and understanding. And that's a good summary, because it kind of shows you the difference between what a machine is doing, which is a lifeless form, which is a lifeless entity. It doesn't have life. It's a machine. You flick the switch off and it's gone. It's just non-existent. You flick the switch on again and it comes back to life, in inverted commas. So then if it's operating on the level of knowledge and it's imitating our understanding, it's imitating the way that we see, is it really understanding and is it really seeing? There's a really famous experiment, a Searle's Chinese experiment, Searle's Chinese. I can't remember the exact name of it, but just like Alan Turing, he sort of proposes this test, or this scenario where there's somebody in a room who has a Chinese dictionary, and he doesn't understand Chinese at all. And there's a slot into his room where someone can put in a piece of paper, and he can put a piece of paper outside of the room. No one sees what's happening inside. Someone from the outside wants to translate a word into Chinese. So he writes a word in English, puts the piece of paper with the word inside of the room. The person inside of the room looks through the dictionary, finds the word, copies whatever's in that dictionary without understanding any Chinese, and returns it back through that slot. And the person picks up the piece of paper and says, "Wow, this guy inside understands Chinese." And then he writes a longer sentence and says, "Translate the sentence for me." And he puts it through the slot. Person inside the room looks through the dictionary, looks through a book of grammar, doesn't understand Chinese at all, copies down these notations, these symbols, characters that Chinese people have, and slots it through back to the person. The person on the outside says, "Wow, this person understands Chinese." But he doesn't, does he? He's just following rules and syntax and whatever's in the dictionary, but it looks like he is understanding. And that's also a really good analogy as to what is happening in this world of machines. And we get mixed up, we get muddled up, because it looks intelligent, it looks like it's seeing, it looks like it is conscious, it looks like it is sentient, but at the end of the day, is it? And that's the question, because machines operate on the level of knowledge, just like the guy in the room. We operate on the level of knowledge and understanding, and we can elaborate on that even more if you want.
Maybe we should, because I think we kind of live in this age of enlightenment, where the scientific rational method becomes so paramount that like, I feel that it becomes, the reason it might become muddled is because, like, if you only have the scientific understanding of looking for something under a microscope, these definitions are super interchangeable. But clearly there's something in our personhood, you call it understanding, but like there's something in our soul which creates this idea of, like, yes, we do live in a realm of scientific understanding of, like, material objects, but there's something else there. Can you speak to a little bit about that, and like maybe where that fits in the hierarchy of being?
Yeah. So that's we're getting to the crux of the issue now. So we have been formed in this scientific mindset of looking at empirical data, looking at external data, and coming to conclusions about things from external data. And this comes back to Enlightenment philosophy and then post-Enlightenment philosophy. Enlightenment philosophy jettisoned metaphysics, jettisoned what we call the philosophy of being, and Enlightenment philosophy jettisoned God from philosophy. So it took away theology from philosophy. What does theology give us in philosophy? Well, theology tells us things like who we are. why we were created, who God is, who we are in this realm of creation. Theology tells us that God is the supreme being, and then next in line in this hierarchy of being are the angels, and then next are human beings, and then to then tap into scholastic and Aristotelian philosophy, then we have the animals, then we have the plants, and then we have the inanimate objects, the rocks and whatnot. And there's a hierarchy, there's an order in our creation. There's order because God created the world, and God is ordered, and therefore there is whatever he touches, whatever he creates is going to have order. And we can grasp this order if we do philosophy and theology correctly. But we need this extra revelation, this extra help from theology to do good philosophy. So we have this being, this hierarchy of being, and then we can come to the conclusion and we can define, okay, what is a human being? And we look at Genesis. Genesis, I think it's chapter 3, verse 18, that says, we were created in the image and likeness of God. What does that mean? Traditionally, that's been interpreted as us having intellect and will, us having a soul, us having the ability to reason, which is what reason and understand, to go back to what I've been saying earlier. This is what our soul gives us. And we know that we have a soul. We know that this soul can operate in the immaterial realm, in the realm that's outside of matter, which is where science is stuck. Science only operates in the realm of matter. Science only operates on the realm of what it can see and what it can touch, whereas our souls allow us to operate in the realm of the immaterial. So when we define what a human being is, and when we define what an what's the word I'm after? I keep forgetting this word, inanimate. When we define what an inanimate thing is first, then we can extrapolate and say what its characteristics are, what its potentiality are, what it can and can't do. So if I've defined in this hierarchy of being what an inanimate object is, what a machine is, you can't have consciousness. It can't have sentience. It can look like it has sentience. It can look like it has conscience, but it never will. And then in this hierarchy of being, if I look at an animal, it's not going to be able to do what our human soul is capable of doing, the human soul that is eternal. And then also us, when we define ourselves. And this kind of doing philosophy we have lost throughout the last 400, 500 years, because Enlightenment philosophy took over our way of thinking, and then the scientific mindset has taken over, and we completely perceive nature around us in this way of, let's analyze what we see and define our beings, what is around us, by what we see and what we can measure. And they're two vastly different ways of analyzing and looking at reality.
Yeah,
How's
and
that?
I think like what calls to mind right now, with your explanation, I think if you'll allow me just to read a small excerpt of a beautiful poem by Oliver, which it concludes in, the world offers your imagination, calls you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. And I think that speaks to what you were saying of the order of, yes, animals, plants, that type of, like, we exist with different levels of consciousness between a duck and a human, surely, but we exist in an organic life form that touches our universe in a way that it would be pretty hard to imagine a computer doing. Now, clearly, I'm not saying a duck has a human soul, but what I am saying is that, like, that it would be very hard to explain to a computer how that poem can make somebody feel. That's something that we have to grasp with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think theology gives us tools to comprehend that, and give a cosmology to understand the universe in that way. In a more going to a bit more pragmatic, we don't have to talk about exactly the nitty gritty of how to do the coding or to create these things, but we need to ensure the purpose of AI aligns with human flourishing. Like, we've sort of had that breakout of the nascent technology of social media. I've written about this, and we've just seen it explode and do some pretty terrible things because it was, like before the car, we didn't have a seatbelt. Well, we need to put seatbelts on to make
Mm.
sure the car is, safe to drive. So how do we create AI that aligns with Catholic social teachings? And
Mm.
there's the phrase that the AI in the Vatican uses, algo ethics. Can you speak to a possibility of trying to create AI that has some sort of form of ethical framework, which can work both in the secular and the Catholic social teachings? Because a lot of the Catholic social teachings, you remove a lot of words, and I can't imagine too many people, of goodwill not
Yeah,
understanding why the beauty or the need for them.
yeah. So I participated last month in a forum at the Vatican on artificial intelligence that was run by the Pontifical Academy of Sciences and the Gregorian University. It was a 2-day event with people from all around the world, experts in artificial intelligence, in philosophy, theology. We got together and we started discussing this whole phenomenon of artificial intelligence. There were people there, in fact, who are going to be responsible in releasing a statement on artificial intelligence by the church. I can't remember which congregation is going to release this, but there's a statement coming out. So it was a big deal, right? And there was some pretty important people there. And one of the first topics of discussion was what you just asked. How do we, in this world of AI that's disruptive, right? It's changing everything. It's the way we do things, the way we operate. It's changing society. So how do we operate as Catholics, as Christians in this world, and what do we do? How do we react to it, etc. So it's a big topic as well. I think there were two main things that were emphasized in this forum at the Vatican. The first was that machines are slowly starting to automate a lot of things that we used to do by ourselves. So in medicine, machines are starting to diagnose things, and we're talking to machines more and more and more. In companies, we're talking to machines more and more. Even on the internet and chat GPT. We used to call up our best mate who was the most well-read person in town, and he could answer all our questions. We don't do that anymore. We just go
Yeah,
into chat
I'm so
GPT
happy people
because
stopped calling me. That's one burden that's been alleviated by my AI.
it's not so. So you were the smartest person in
Yeah,
town.
I wish. So I'm talking to you, man. Anyway, sorry, go on.
That's all right. That's all right. So we're slow, and this is what social media has done to us as well, in that we're losing contact with other human beings. And we weren't created for that. We were created as political animals, to quote Aristotle. We were created to live in communities. We're created to live, to grow, to thrive in a community of love, and then to sort of extrapolate that love to a love for God. And this whole thing was meant to be nicely ordered, but suddenly this human element is getting taken away from us and being replaced by something that seems like it has a human element. So that's social media initially, and now AI. It seems like it has a human element, but it's not. It definitely is not. This is a machine. It's an inanimate object that can't love, that can't tap into the eternal, that can't, to use Platonic terminology, that can't tap into the eternal world of forms and bring things it has learned from these eternal world of forms into our world. And our souls need this, right? Our souls require this. We are dead if we do not have contact with other human beings. So this is one thing that was discussed and said, this is a perfect opportunity for us to go out and to show other people the need for community life, the need for love. And the people are starting to hunger for this, to thirst for this, like never before. It's a perfect opportunity for ministering, because the church is the fullness of love, is the fullness of truth, and we are able to give this to them like no other organization slash institution out there in the world. A perfect opportunity for apostolic work. So that's one thing that we can do. The other thing that was talked about was making sure that we have good data. So AI works by you feeding data into an algorithm, and then the algorithm works out patterns from this data, and it works out, it tries to comprehend what this word means, what this word means, what the context is. It works this out mathematically, quite ingeniously, how it manages to bring context and understanding into a mathematical notation. And then it operates from these patterns that it has learned. Now, these patterns, this data that we feed into AI has been created by us. So most of the data is from the internet. Now, we are broken. We have broken natures. So anything that we create is not going to be perfect. It's going to be broken as well. And hence the data that we feed into AI is going to be broken. The brokenness is going to be imitated, and the AI is going to learn this brokenness through it. So it's important that when we create these data sets, when we feed this information into artificial intelligence, that we try to somehow filter out this brokenness, to bring more positivity into this data, so that the algorithms that come out of it will be more, positive, to use a broad tool, will be more loving. I don't want to use the word loving because it's such a beautiful, profound word, and these machines don't love, but in a broad sense, to be more loving rather than to be more hostile, aggressive, biased, etc. in AI. So those are the two things that come to mind initially, and that's the other thing, the Al ethics that you mentioned as well. Making sure that when we train these entities, to make sure that there's a famous saying in computer science: garbage in, garbage out. If you feed garbage into an algorithm, you're going to get garbage out. Don't put garbage in, good stuff in, you get good stuff out, basically.
What role do you think the church can play in guiding ethical use of AI technologies on a global scale? And is there need for, I guess, techno philosophers, techno theologians to be revolutionized, to be a new part of Vatican's a pontifical council, or something a little bit more robust? Or do we already have the mechanisms in place?
Yeah, wow, that's a big question as well. And this was another topic that was discussed at this AI forum in the Vatican. Well, the first part of your question, what can the church do? Well, obviously, it has to preach love and compassion and everything that it's and the truth, right? It's got to teach the truth. If there's more truth out there, these AI agents are going to be trained on the truth and will be a lot more beneficial than not, right? That's one thing. With this idea of I can't remember what term you used, technocrat philosophers. Yeah, that was an interesting discussion that we had. And there was a good point made by Father Stephen Wang, who's the rector of the English College in Rome. I can't remember the exact terminology. There's an English seminary in Rome, very famous seminary, and he's the rector there. He was there as well at this forum because he did his PhD on consciousness in Thomas Aquinas. And he mentioned some really, really good things, saying that people are asking existential questions. People are asking important questions about who we are in all this context. What defines us? What makes us special? There's an innate feeling that there's more to us than to machines. Science is not going to tell us that. Science perceives us as mechanistic, as deterministic. But deep down, we know we have a heart, we have a soul, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to start answering these questions. And we do need technocrat philosophers and theologians, because we need to start speaking in the language of modernity and of science and of artificial intelligence. We need people smart enough to start to see that these scientists that are trying to give understanding to machines, that are trying to give self-reflection and all these things, they realize that there's something missing. There's a core thing missing in the machine, and it's a perfect opportunity for us to go out there and start talking about the soul, and and to use the language that they're using and to fill in the blanks and to show maybe, maybe there's more to us than meets the eye, pretty much literally, than meets the empirical data. There's this famous scientist called Jan LeCun. He's the chief scientist of Meta, which is used to be Facebook, and he's anti-hype of AI. His voice doesn't get heard because Elon Musk, Sam Altman, these guys sell papers. The media is going to listen to them. They're going to talk about it. Elon Musk is all about AI is going to take over the world. There's consciousness just around the corner. We have to prepare ourselves for this. There's plenty of scientists that are saying otherwise. There's plenty of scientists on the ground working with these things and are honest and saying, look, these things are dumb. And Jan LeCun is one of them. He recently published an article, I think it was 2 weeks ago, for the Washington Post, where he basically said ChatGPT is BS, to quote him verbatim. A cat is more intelligent than ChatGPT. It's true, right? It's true when you break it down, when you actually stop cherry picking examples from artificial intelligence, stop cherry picking examples for what the media does, and break things down. It's true what he says, and he's broken away from the main trend of AI, which has been in deep learning. So deep learning was this revolutionary algorithm that came to the fore in 2012. And it's changed the way that we do AI, and it's what has brought AI back onto the scene. It's what's made AI profitable and into what it's this algorithm, right? It's this new way of doing it. And he's broken away from that. He's saying, look, that's not the solution. Deep learning is we're reaching the limits to some degree of what deep learning has achieved. Deep learning is operating on this boring level of knowledge. There's something missing. There's some fundamental aspect missing in artificial intelligence. We're operating in the wrong paradigm. And he's trying to find a new paradigm to develop AI under. And a perfect opportunity, right? And I wrote an article on this on my blog. It's a perfect opportunity for us to go in and say, maybe this new paradigm is the human soul. Maybe that's the thing that you are looking for in the machine. Maybe this whole idea of understanding, of seeing it profoundly, of loving, of having compassion and all that, maybe that is what you are looking for. And it's if we have these technocrat philosophers and theologians, they can go out there and dialogue with these people who are honest in their work, who do not buy into the hype. And it's a perfect example of outreach that is possible with these scientists, honest, good scientists.
Well, what comes next from the Vatican's perspective? What are they going to take as next steps? I guess we don't know. We can't prognosticate 10 years in advance, but after this meeting, what was the title of the meeting, and also what comes next?
The title of the meeting was Builders AI Forum. So anyone who's building artificial intelligence, who's working in artificial intelligence, I think the official title is Builders AI Forum. What comes next? Well, we discussed this as well at the end. Like, how do we keep the channel open, the communications open? What do we do? So I think we're going to keep meeting on a yearly basis. We've got a LinkedIn group going. We've got a WhatsApp group going. We keep sharing constantly every day with something new comes up from this group. Someone's written a new article. Someone's found something interesting. Someone's had an interview with another interesting person. So this whole thing's going to keep going. I really do hope. I gained a lot from that particular experience with respect to the Church and the Vatican and official statements. So there is something coming out soon. What we have, the most recent thing we have, is the encyclical by Pope Francis, De Lexit Nos, and there's 2 paragraphs on artificial intelligence. And they're beautiful paragraphs. They are beautiful paragraphs. It's the whole first section of his encyclical talks about the heart, right? And he challenges this scientific mentality in the first part of this encyclical. And I was taken aback at how beautiful the Pope's writing was. And there's a section on artificial intelligence that basically says, we are unique. We have a heart, and that's what separates us. And let's stop trying to analyze what the heart is. Let's stop trying to put it into conceptual terms that we then break apart scientifically. that we try to tie to consciousness, that we try to tie to sentience, that we try to see how it connects to the material realm, and all these things, just stop and contemplate on our uniqueness, on our relationship with God, and the central aspect of this uniqueness, which is the human heart. And he goes on to say that AI does not have a heart. It is an inanimate object. It is not going to replace that thing. So that came out, 3 weeks ago, I think, and I suspect that something similar is coming out from the Vatican in that vein of the encyclicals.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that the human heart and
Mm,
and not being present and that existing in our reality, which straddles the different worlds. And you might have heard recently of the controversy surrounding the advocacy group Catholic Answers, who put out a Father Justin chatbot, and he claimed to be a priest and generated some pretty bizarre responses.
mm.
From a theological or philosophical perspective, can you speak to that and the consequences of having AI representation of clergy? Because if it passes the Turing test and we
Mm.
can chat with it and it's giving answers that are predicated on a model that is dogmatic, what element is lost, and why can't you learn from something like that spiritually? What's missing?
Yeah, yeah. Funnily enough, the representatives of Catholic Answers were at this AI forum as well. I don't know when they released this. I don't know if this was post or pre controversy, but yeah. So something like that already exists. There's this thing called Magisterium AI. It's a Chat GPT version for Catholics where they can talk to, let's say, Chat GPT, Catholic Chat GPT, and get answers about the church's magisterium. And the founder of Magisterium, the CEO of Magisterium, he was there as well at this Vatican thing, and he talked about his product. So yeah, this is a good question. Now, the Turing test, right? It goes back to 1950. Alan Turing, he also took Google's stance, Google's strategy in defining artificial intelligence. He said, let's not talk about philosophy, let's talk about competence. And he said he basically defined AI, or the Turing test, as it is AI if it passes the visible phenomenon of a human being. If I can fool you into thinking I'm a human being, then we can deem something as artificial intelligence. So is it possible then to replace a priest? Is it possible for Magisterium AI to transform sooner or later, 10 years down the track, into a priest? On the surface, yes. On the surface, yes, it is, because machines are starting to imitate us better and better. They're starting to, seem like they're human. They have passed Alan Turing's test, 10, 20 years ago easily, and they're doing a lot more now than what Alan Turing envisaged in 1950. However, this is a very superficial analysis of the phenomenon. This is once again why we need philosopher technocrats. What makes us unique as human beings, and what makes priests unique? All right, so human beings, like I've mentioned, we are in the hierarchy of being. We straddle between the material realm and the immaterial realm, and we can operate in the immaterial realm. We can talk to God. We can communicate with God. We can tap into the ultimate source of truth, the ultimate source of goodness, the ultimate source of beauty, the ultimate source of creativity. We can tap into this infinite source, and we can bring it down and share it with other people. If anybody has ever been touched by a holy person, by an amazingly beautiful sermon, by something that cut deep into their soul, they will know what I'm about to say. This is something that only human beings can do. What cut into us, what truly moved us, came from the realm of the immaterial, came from the realm of the source of the infinite beauty, of the infinite truth, of infinite justice, of infinite all the positive superlatives. And this is something that a machine just absolutely cannot do. Absolutely not. It is not in that hierarchy of being. It can imitate that, right? It can imitate that, and it can imitate that to an exceptional degree, and it's going to get better and better at imitating that. But what cut into us, cut into our immaterial realm as well, cut into our soul. Something came from the immaterial realm and went into immaterial realm. It's not saying that what a machine can tell us can move us, because we can ask it for church teachings and it can give us church teachings, and we can read these church teachings, and they're beautiful in themselves, and therefore that can move us. But this idea of a double-edged sword cutting straight into us, a machine is just not going to be able to do that. So yes, superficially, a priest, yes, but a priest is in persona Christi, and in persona, geez, that has huge implications in the infinite, right? And a machine is not going to be able to do that.
Here's where, and like that's agree, I totally agree. I think I'm going to add another level to it. So I put it back to you.
Hit me.
That works. I think yes. I think anybody speaking needs to be speaking with an intermediary if they're going to deal with something that talks to our soul, right? So a response from a computer needs an intermediary. It might be correct, but it might not. There's still hallucinations, right? Like, so
Oh yeah.
to go out there and say like, no, it's okay to just put it out, that doesn't make sense to me. But what if I put this to you? What if a priest goes and writes a very good, engineers a very good prompt and says, I would like to talk about this aspect of what's going on in the world. I would like this philosopher's interpretation of it, and this is the homily of the week. They get it printed out. They come, they preach. It's a person.
Mm.
And then it hits the congregation, and it kind of sort of hits you in the feels. It's not, to my knowledge, an illegal thing to do at present. But that discussion to me is, I think it's very important when you're dealing with something that touches you in that way. So, like as a music creator, as a writer, I can use ChatGPT for so many things, but I'm not saying, I'm not going Amish on this. I'm not saying we destroy, but I'm saying like there's just certain things that perhaps need our human element. And
Yeah.
what do you say to that when it gets extrapolated from text and then presented by a human?
Yeah. Okay. So let's say that when a person speaks, they speak with intention. They hopefully speak with love. They hopefully speak with compassion. And what ChatGPT could generate could be the truth, right? There's nothing wrong with you asking it to get you something from the magisterium, from whatever, give you the truth and organize it into a nice format so it flows and whatnot. And then you get this document and then you preach it. But if you believe what is there, if you have love for what is there, if you have passion for what is there and enthusiasm for what is there, and you deliver that with that passion from your soul, if you are a holy person, a person of love, that's going to transform people. Even though ChatGPT assisted you with writing all of what you've requested, you've delivered that from the heart, right? And that's a different thing. And this kind of relates to what I'm about to say as well, because I've stopped teaching online because I've lost something with my students. I've realized that there's an element of in persona. There's an element that when you are present with someone, there is some kind of a connection, my soul to your soul, and this connection can't be digitized, right? It can't be brought down into ones and zeros, sent through electrical signals, and then brought up onto the other side. It loses, right? This screen, this camera is a barrier to some immaterial elements. And this barrier exists with ChatGPT as well, right? There's things that you can't digitize and give to ChatGPT. But if you do this in person and speak these things, these immaterial things that have the source in our soul, that transforms everything, right? It changes everything, and people can get moved by what you say, even though ChatGPT, because you have made it your own, right? What ChatGPT has generated for you, you've made your own. You have loved it. You have transformed it, and you have given that love to other people. It's a tool, right? It's a tool that you use for love.
Yeah, it's that's an excellent way of referring to it, and I think that there's something profoundly un-Catholic about not congregating in person, like the
Yeah,
community
yeah,
aspect, the communal
100%
aspect,
agree with you.
especially in times where we live right now, where so many interests are competing for us, and so much of our personality and our soul is being bought and sold on markets. There's a place where we can go with different ideologies and different political backgrounds where the door is closed to corporate interest, to political interests, and where you can sit and be soul to soul and person to person. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that you used you didn't want to describe it as artificial intelligence. You said something about statistical. I was reading in one of your
Yeah,
blogs. Why does that language matter?
yeah, because so I wrote this article called "The Need for New Terminology in Artificial Intelligence," and we touched upon this at the very beginning of this interview. In that we have to be precise in the way that we use terms, and like you mentioned, this CEO of Microsoft, he said that machines understand, machines see, machines learn. And he's using that term interchangeably between what we do and what machines do, but it's different. And I've already discussed this. They're fundamentally, we do these things fundamentally differently. We understand differently than machines understand. Machines operate with statistics. They operate with numbers. They crunch these numbers, they translate these numbers into words. They don't understand these words, they just display them on the screen because this is what a mathematical equation has told them to do. So I kind of think that because there's such murkiness in this world of artificial intelligence, we're using these terms interchangeably and we're getting confused, that perhaps we should think about changing the terminology currently in use. So I suggested using applied statistics for artificial intelligence, because that's what it is at the core. It is statistics, and we are applying statistics. A machine has learned how to represent numbers, sentences, paragraphs as numbers, and then it has learned how to statistically generate words and paragraphs so that they make sense to us, but it's all numbers to the machine. So it's applied statistics. It's not artificial intelligence, because we use the term intelligence interchangeably between us two. And here we are talking about consciousness and sentience, but this is not reality, right? Where's the human soul in all of this? Where's the self-reflection in all of this? So
Well, if there's
that's why.
I just as a counterance, the idea
Mm,
of human soul might not be present, but there are creative elements where AI is
mm,
figuring things out without us. So oftentimes there's a pushback. I have a great friend who takes your position, and I'm a little bit not skeptical, but I always push back on the idea of where the creativity part of it is that
mm,
we talk about AI right now, as you say, the statistics, it seems to be just like coding. But there's parts of AI where it's creatively figuring things out that we're not telling it to figure out, that it's able to at present. And does that creativity maybe not give it a soul, but
mm.
present something other than just um, open brackets, close bracket, type of
Yeah.
code?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is good, right? So in this article that I wrote about this new terminology for artificial intelligence, I also
Can we
mentioned
stop and
that.
just plug? Can we plug your blog for a second? Can you tell
Yeah.
the
Sure.
listeners? Why not, right? Let's
Yeah.
go.
Sure. Yeah. I write all of this stuff. I go against the grain sometimes. I put a spin on AI with a bit of a Catholic perspective, a philosophical, theological Catholic perspective. It's a secular blog, but I try to write um, in a Catholic way. My Catholic thought underpins all of my articles, and because I'm a scientist, I write in scientific language. But hopefully, um, minister through a secular medium. So it's bigatron.com, GATRON.
I'll put that in the show notes.
You can
Anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's fine. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So I wrote this article and I said, we should be precise and we should kind of clear up this murkiness between us and machines. But at the same time, like you say, a machine does kind of learn. A machine does kind of understand. A machine does kind of create. So it's okay to use these terms for machines. So what I say is that at the moment, maybe we should change the terminology because we are messing things up. We haven't really organized these things in our minds. But at the heart of it, machines do create in a way. They do learn in a way. They do see in a way. Let's not get nitpicky here. However, creativity between what we do and what machines do, there's an infinite divide. Once again, I'm going to refer to the immaterial realm. When we create, we can tap into infinite beauty, infinite goodness, infinite truth, and bring that into our material realm here. And that infinite beauty, infinite goodness can touch people. Whereas machine, it still operates on the level of knowledge. Like I said, machines operate on the level of knowledge. We operate on the level of knowledge and understanding. So you can create on the level of knowledge. I'm perfectly okay with that. So if I say, if I ask ChatGPT or DALL-E or whatever, give me a picture of an animal that has the head of a horse, the body of a lizard, and the eyes of I don't know, of a phalanx or something. Who knows? Who cares? That stuff has never been created by a human being. So the machine goes back and generates this picture that no one has ever seen before. So in a way, it is creating. But we have to sort of distinguish between the creative power that we have and the creative power that the machines have. And we can't use those things interchangeably. And that's what I'm trying to emphasize in my article. Let's not say that, a machine's creative, therefore it has consciousness. A machine's creating, therefore that's a huge leap. That is an infinite leap from that. So yes, I do agree with that. There is a creative element to it. If you look at the mechanics of that creative element, it's statistics, it's mathematics and whatnot. But yes, it is generating things that we have never seen before. Therefore, it is creating.
And it created this excellent podcast. So on behalf of everyone at Common TV, we would love to thank you for your time. And we really appreciate it because I think this is something that, it could really do a lot of good for a lot of people to listen and to understand. And
it's very important, isn't it? Yeah, it's very important.
It truly is. And I hope we can get this in the hands of some educators as well. So Dr. Ziggy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.